So looks like we've got 4 or 5 of us. So the first thing I wanted to kick this off with, everyone, is I wanted to just take a second here, and I would love to have you guys do this poll for me, which is, as you can see it now, should have just shown up on your screen. So if you go to menti.com and enter the code 727937, you will be able to do a word cloud here. So if everybody wanted to do that real quick. I'm curious what we all think the biggest barriers to taking meetings online is for each and every one of us. And Courtney, that includes you. If you could, if you could definitely do that, that would be great. I should probably do it too, shouldn't I? Let's be serious here. The wall came from Courtney or Scott.
It doesn't let me add more.
You only get 3.
I know, but it doesn't even let me refresh or replace those.
Oh, it's because you only get 3. It's seeing it by IP right now. These are good.
Matt, is Menti your favorite polling?
I would say of ones that I've seen, it's actually the easiest from an end user experience, both at end user to set up as well as the essentially audience participation. It also gives you some really great like word clouds and different things. Menti is just, after seeing it, I can honestly say that Ben Chamber introduced me to it. After seeing it, actually, it's hands down has been one of the best ones. Amanda, I just saw that you jumped in there. I don't know if you've gotten a chance, but menti.com, use the code 727937. If you want to take this and add to the poll, that would be great, just so that we can actually, and everybody joining us on Facebook also, if you guys could take that Menti poll. Again, the question is what are those barriers to taking our existing meetings online, and what does that look like? So currently, we've got distractions is definitely one of the biggest ones at this point in time. We can talk a little bit about distractions, lack of interaction, speed bumps. I'm not sure what speed bumps is. I'm guessing that was a funny one. Attendance, internet's a good one. I will say that I'm streaming right now from not a very fast connection, so this is kind of nice. So yeah, I think I'd like to, so let's take the next one here. So everybody, here's another one. Whoops, I need to click on that. There we go. So what service could I, meaning you folks on the other side, offer in the event industry to maintain my clients? So again, that is not me personally, that is you. What service do you feel like you could offer in the event industry to maintain your clients in a period of time that obviously we're dealing with? We can't have large events like we traditionally have. So what service could I personally offer in the event industry to maintain my clients? I should probably go back that. Again, this is a word cloud, so we got 3. Virtual concerts. I'm guessing that was from Mr. Latham, but actually I kind of like that idea. Anybody else have anything? Lead generation, virtual concerts, digital workshops. Good. Okay. Yeah, those are all really good. And we can definitely talk about the online experience a little bit. I will tell you that what I am doing, unshare my. You guys can continue to take that if you want. I'm going to go ahead and unshare and go back to full screen. What I will say about better online experience is it really truly does matter a lot what you're presenting and how that online experience reflects. Katie and I actually talked a little while ago. Katie, could you just briefly mention? I'm going to put you on the spot here, but could you briefly mention what it is that you do?
Sure. And Trevor, my colleagues on here as well. But yeah, we have a thought leadership agency, which basically means we help companies get out there and noticed in the market. And one of the services we offer is speaking programs. So getting executives on stage at events where they want to have a presence. Which, as you can imagine, it's been a difficult couple of weeks. So we're talking a lot about virtual events, and that's where Matt and I were able to connect today.
Yeah, and it was really great because we had a really great conversation, and I wanted to impart a few things that we've been thinking about, and one of the things that, and I would like you guys all to weigh in. So if after I've presented, if you've got some thoughts, I would definitely appreciate those thoughts as well, because I am trying to make this as interactive and an interactive discussion as possible. So the question that I was posed was, do you think virtual events can be as effective as in-person events? And the reality is that yes, and it goes into how you structure that event. But I believe very firmly that these virtual events can actually result in the same sort of quality experience for the attendees that would normally be there. You have to again look at how you're structuring that event and what that looks like from an interaction standpoint, because again, this is one to many. It's not, essentially a, one-on-one experience. So how does that look like for the audience? What does that feel like? And you have to take a look at also learning styles. And obviously, not all of us learn the same way. Some of us are auditory learners, some of us are visual learners, some of us are experiential learners. So the reality is we have to all take a look at how we are learning and structure those in experiences and environments to best fit that end user. It's certainly, however, in this time, we need to be having and continually to have these events. My firm belief is that we have thought leaders within our community, with any of our communities that we are working with, that deserve to be on the on these stages, not just having their own website. The issue is that we as event leaders oftentimes are going through that screening process. We're going through the process of saying, hey, we think that you should be part of this panel. We'll often work with them from a presentation standpoint to refine their presentation. And so it's extremely important that we continue to have that, because I believe that that thought leadership will unfortunately start to wane if we don't continue to push these virtual environments. And that's extremely, extremely important from what I feel and what I sense. Does anybody have any other feelings on that other than what I've shared?
I'll comment here. Having led international video conferences in the corporate world for many, many years, that is quite often the only way that we're able to share leadership and guidance and the sharing of ideas. And I think the technology is now to the point where, as was presented a few minutes ago, things like virtual concerts, broadband is relatively ubiquitous, certainly in the audiences that we're targeting. And I would completely agree with you. Keep doing them, because make this part of the norm. I know recently there's been a lot of attention towards attending Sunday services, and many of the more progressive churches that have existing systems that are up and running are taking this in stride. They're able to quickly move their operations online to virtual and continue to get their message out. Organizations that don't, or suddenly find themselves having to, are in a sort of reactive mode. they need to do it. They need to keep hitting them, and certainly we're forced into it now. So I'm a strong supporter, as you know.
Yeah. Hey, Courtney, I don't know. Are you in a position to speak? I mean, obviously, you're in this panel, and you probably are one of the people that, oh, for lack of, Katie's definitely affected, I know for sure. Other people that are on the call right now, Amanda, I know is definitely affected. But from your standpoint, Courtney, is there anything that you can think of that, that if we were to lose these, if we were to essentially lose these events, I mean, from a standpoint of that thought leadership and that sort of thing, I mean, what is your feeling on that?
Feeling as far as?
Well, I mean, we're in a critical time that obviously, we're losing events, and those events actually
Right.
could also, be beneficial to the populations that these events are in. So in the city of Bend, obviously there's some real estate and some other events that are not happening that are definitely affecting other people. So how going virtually, I guess, or, continuing to do these, how do you think that's can be impactful?
The biggest thing is information flow. I mean, so many of the events we do that are fundraisers and based for the various market segments, it's a big information flow. It's a big opportunity to question economists, industry professionals, and get those questions answered, get the information out, and get everybody empowered to do more, make more money, make better choices, and kind of keep moving forward. And I think, unfortunately, we're going to see a lot more cancellations than postponements. There's only so many dates on the calendar and only so many spaces to do things. So there's going to be some big gaps from on the information side for people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So I think and again, it's extremely important that we figure out in an alternative style of presentation. I wanted to also give everybody some thoughts too on, how this looks and how all of us, even from our own homes, can make things better. So for instance, you can see in this environment that I'm presenting, this is basically, I've got a couple of lights up. I'm well lit. The webcam I have is a little bit more upper model. Also, I've got a decent mic, which makes my voice sound good. Simple things, though, from your folks' standpoint, if you are looking to even do this, from a personal and providing more information and that sort of thing, is the simple things like a Blue Yeti microphone. They're about $100, and getting a good webcam, that's another $100. The Logitech C920 is a great little camera. Just those two things alone can increase your quality of what you do a lot. I'd recommend also getting something like a mic stand like this, where it's, booms over. It can get close to your mouth. But creating virtual events are one of those things that we all can do and should be doing within our industry to continue the growth of our own industry. Because let's face it, we've all taken a big, huge hit, and we need to basically figure out other ways of doing it. So let's see. I was just trying to see who else is in here. Courtney, I mean, let me come back to you for a quick second. I got a question for you. I just have a question from you, as far as, obviously, you're seeing a lot of these things. Can you talk about, thoughts that you may have had from a virtual environment, for like a lot of these events we're doing, our auctions or that sort of thing? Have you given some thought to how we can better present that and continue to have those events?
I think the power of video these days is the direction to go. I mean, if you can't travel, if you can't have the person there, there's so many options with video walls, projector screens, TVs, cameras. The internet's fast enough, strong enough in most places, that you can still do this and still have the experience and still keep people engaged. But if the audio isn't quite right, the video isn't quite right, the lighting's a little off, there's anything that gives people the chance to kind of lose focus, then the message drops off some. So if you do it right, and use the tools that are out there this day and age, you can get a lot of messages out there to a lot bigger audience without having to recreate the wheel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. We do have a chat function, since for those of us that are joining us on Zoom and those joining us on Facebook, I'd like to know some of your questions, what you think and what your feelings are. Amanda, obviously, I know you joined us, but what are some of those questions, and let's see if we can get sort of these, you've got a lot of people here that can help you also. So, Valerie, Amanda, even Katie, Trevor, or us as individuals, what is, if you want to throw some questions out, that would be great. My whole focus in doing what I'm doing right now is that I realize that we have an opportunity to help others, help people get better, and just do that, because that's what's most important. Is we need to keep moving. We need to keep moving forward. We can't, we can't continue to go down this loss of this loss of revenue for all of us, because it's gonna hit our bottom line more than anything else. Scott just asked 2-person interview, and I don't see, the thing is that within a virtual space, I think that we do have an opportunity. So Scott's question is, how best to do a 2-person interview? 1 person and 1 camera looks good, but 2 people and 1 camera looks like we're too far away. And I'm going to completely agree with that. I mean, the reality is that when we are looking at interviews or things that we are going to be producing, we need to just take the time on the end user experience and say, what's going to be the best experience for everybody. And, I'm not saying that you couldn't do it with 1 camera, but knowing that you have people to do it that can do it correctly is important. And, there's a lot of us out here that will travel, that will go and do something if we need to. We'll get in a car. We can't fly, we'll get in a car. And, because the reality is that we all need to be doing it continually. I keep harping on that, and I shouldn't, but that's the reality. So anybody else have any thoughts? I mean, again, I wanted to make this sort of a creative discussion and sort of a round robin, also not just a presentation of just for me. Okay, then sounds good. So
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Just from people who have been doing digital events or have some experience in the past. I know we're kind of in a crisis moment right now, trying to save the events that were canceled, but are there any trends or formats that you've seen pre this corona crisis that might have potential once live events come back that we should consider investing in more than other formats?
A really good question, and I think what we've seen as an industry is that we have skirted with the live event thing. Conferences, usually good conferences, will have some sort of a streaming track. They will typically record and put behind a paywall their conferences, which has increased revenue in the long run. They provide initially a good portion for free, but then they put a lot of them behind the paywall. I'm really actually surprised that more conferences don't actually just provide that content, because there's some really, really good content. I mean, Apple is now one of the best at providing every single basically conference, or every single room that they do, they actually have a recording. And so, when you look at right now, this is extremely important. And I'm not sure why, at least from an educational conference, more are not doing that. Concerts, for that matter, I'm surprised that, when you have a packed conference, or excuse me, a concert, why they aren't working with the artists to extend that reach to larger communities. The trends are definitely one of those things right now that we're going to be setting the bar for the future. And I look at it and I say, you know what? The reality is we need to just basically be moving forward, and working on almost creating new trends too. Trevor, does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just curious, what your thoughts were. So that's awesome to hear.
Yeah. It's the reality is that I have been doing streaming for 10 plus years. Have always harped on my clients to say, hey, why don't we just do this? Or why don't we do this? Why don't we provide a live stream? Why don't we provide a behind the paywall? And there's such a resistance to do that from a standpoint of, what does it look like? What does it look like to, you know, what will it do to take away attendance? And I'm like, it may take a few away, but those people that are going to come are still going to come. And having that content available for the future is just such an important thing. And we're now in a spot that we have to do that if we want to continue to have the content out there.
I have a comment on that too, Matt. We worked on an event for Adobe that was in Las Vegas at the NAB show a couple years ago, and it was the people who did the visual effects for Stranger Things 2. So it was a really cool session, but that room only holds 450 people. So there's a very, relatively small audience for such a cool thing. And so we had it live streamed, and within 24 hours, we had 10,000 people who saw that session, and it went up exponentially from there. So I feel like, to your point about why not take it to more people, obviously those people were not in the room, they weren't going to go, they weren't able to go, but that reach went far and wide with that message.
Yeah, and Katie, that is a really good point, because that's the reality is that we are reaching people that we may not know that we're even reaching. I've been privileged to do a couple of concert streams, and just the comments and everything that come back, I've just been like, oh my gosh, why haven't we been doing this the entire time is the question. Really. And now with what's going on, I think we owe it to our end users. I mean, entertainment right now for me seems like a no-brainer. I mean, the Tower, all of these other people that could provide entertainment, because the reality is our kids are going to be locked in their houses, the parents, everybody's going to be craving, and Netflix only works for so long.
And Matt, there's literally a television channel out there for people that they stream and record concerts, and it sustains subscriptions in the whole 9 yards. There's a whole segment of society that likes watching concerts or seeing them, even if it's after the fact or while it's happening live.
Well, and I think that's a good question. I had Amanda just sent me a direct question, and the reality is that Amanda, I hope you're okay if I identify who you're with. We have a local theater, the Tower Theater, that does a lot of concerts, and they can't they can't bring any. Well, I mean, it's shut down, but the reality is, could they do a concert and stream it, and would people pay for it? Would you pay $2.50? Would you pay $3? Would you pay $5? What is that level? And does it look more like a package, or does it look more like individual events? And I open that up to all of you. Does it look like a package, or does it look like an individual event? Because I have always been constantly struggling to figure out what that looks like as far as what people will pay for. Courtney, what's your feeling on that?
I think every situation is going to be a slightly different scenario. I think with the Tower or a similar type venue who has a lot of reoccurring shows, I think it's a great option to do a package deal or a monthly $9.99 or something like that, as we seem to live in the subscription age. I think there's other places where it could be more of a piece by piece. The hard part is just making sure that the price, if you can get the quantity of people to cover the cost, to adjust the price and do all those things, and truly market it. If you don't market what you're doing, and you don't actually get the word out on the streaming, on the recording, on where to find it, that it's going to be there, and instead of it and keeping it from being an afterthought, then you won't get your money back or get the exposure and reach.
Which I mean, Courtney, I think probably you're the one person in this group that probably has the most experience with bands. Do you think that they're going to realize there's enough of a hit financially if they don't, like, at least, I mean, we know that it's at least the next 30 days realistically. Do they, like, if you were to go to a group of bands and say, hey, we've got 3 days straight, we're gonna, each day we're gonna put you on the stage, do you think you could get them at a reasonable rate? I mean, I guess that's the writers are always so expensive, that sort of thing. I mean, is this a time where bands are going to be a little bit more willing to say, I want to be out there still, I want to be providing for the community, I want to be providing the entertainment? I mean, I know for me, I'd be looking at that and going, gosh, man, I'm the only one doing it, so I might as well.
It's going to be very case by case. I mean, there's a lot of bands that are in contracts that keep them very limited in what they can and can't do, and have a lot of rules. Depends, it's going to depend on a lot of factors, as far as even, how big of a geographic area could watch it or not. How long could they watch it? Does it impact other tour stops or whatnot? I think there are a lot of bands that are in your local regional, and even some performances that I think are going to be looking for options and ideas to make some money to fill some gaps. It's the bigger touring national acts that you're going to have a whole lot more difficult time making this happen, as it falls into a whole other category of their contracts.
Yeah, and actually that goes to that whole question about, is it, subscription, or is it a one-off sort of event? I don't know. I mean, the reality is that we all need to pull our audiences and say, hey, by the way, I mean, this is almost a time that we need to be a little more honest and say, hey, for instance, in the Towers case, if they don't, if the tower, doesn't have performances, they don't have the revenue coming in at that point in time. So would your audience basically be willing to say, hey, I'm willing to pop $50 and I'm going to get 3 performances this, or 1 a week, basically. And that's something that I think we all have to be asking our end users. And to that, I think a little bit broader, Valerie just asked about virtual events, and older people. And I actually have spoken to an organization here in Bend today that is thinking about having their events virtually, because they don't want to lose any momentum that they have. And I think we as technology people can structure those events so it's very easy from a user experience. So for instance, you want to capture their data. Well, there are tools and technologies that can capture that data, bring it in, and then just provide that stream to them accordingly. So I think we can do it. I think we just have been doing the same thing forever, and now we just have to think about our events differently. Valerie, I don't know if that sort of answers your question. I believe that people that want to support your organization are going to continue to support your organization. You just have to make it easy for them to support your organization. And if that looks like some sort of virtual event, with a group of people, then you just have to look at it differently, or not a group of people. I guess it would be 1 or 2 people in a family. That can still happen. That can still work today. But that's I've felt that way. I have felt that way for a long time, and I just haven't thumped my chest big enough to actually get people to buy in. Courtney, did you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, kind of following up on that, the 2 things I think that are still, I mean, obviously the paradigm has shifted, and this is our first big kick saying, hey, things are going to be a little different. On top of that, I think the other thing that people need to realize is that there is the capability to do a streaming video web integrated solution that isn't like a bootleg a speaker in the corner and a mic and a camera a long ways away, and it's echoey and boomy like so many conference boardrooms are, where there's a speaker at the end of the room, everybody's voice echoes throughout. There's a lot of solutions to where that is a lot cleaner sound. It's video mixed. It has a much more professional look to it than I think the common perception of what some of these corporate boardroom web conference rooms are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this, this group that we're here, I mean, you've got some professionals in this group, and I think that that's the reality is we're talking about switching this to a different model than just sticking a webcam on a monitor and, just doing an event. We are talking about miking it well, doing higher quality video production. So it's a great experience. And I would say in some respects, a better experience for the end audience. They're watching, essentially what they're doing is they're watching TV. And that's the way to look at it. We are providing a television quality experience to the end user. And that is what's super important to realize. It's not the old day of web conferencing. I mean, even the little things that I did here with lighting and, a good mic, everyone can do. But then what we're talking about doing is even taking it up one more level. And that's super important. Does anybody else have any questions? I've got one more question, but I just wanted to see if anybody else has got any questions out there. Yes, Scott, what's your question? Oh, Rob has a question. Hold on one second. Scott, you already were there, so I'm going to unmute Robin and see what her question is.
Hey, Matt. Hi, all. My question is as I know you, Matt and Courtney, know this is all new to me, and we've just gone through a lot with our real estate impact breakfast, which draws upwards to 600 people. We just had to cancel that. I know we talked a little bit about doing what we're discussing. My question is I had a hard time explaining to my people, how does that work on the other end as far as costs and whatnot, when we were looking at Jessica, and how do we make sure that that quality is coming through from their side as well?
So Robin, let me just rephrase that. So you're just wanting to make sure that the cost, I mean, the ROI basically is there so that it doesn't become so cost prohibitive that, whoever's on the other end of potentially then attending a free event, it's not costing the organization anything. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
No, actually, as far as the technology and the technology on the other end. So if we're looking at, we were going to bring Jessica in, how does that work on that end as far as bringing the technology from their side onto our side?
Oh, okay. So, and this is where you joined us late, Robin, but I mentioned, actually I didn't mention it, but you ship them. This is a bad example because this is probably not big enough, but you essentially would ship them a box that has everything that they would need in it. And we just, we work with them to have a better webcam, to have everything that they need basically at that point in time. And we ship it to them and check it out a couple of days before, hardwired connection on their end, and can definitely make it happen. Does that answer your question, Robin?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I do have another question. This is a great one. Valerie asked a question that basically creative ideas to promote sponsors during a virtual event. Again, this is a broadcast. So the great thing about this is that from a landing page standpoint, you could put their logos all over the page. So if you want title sponsor, when they get to the the actual page that the stream is on. So again, we're not talking about necessarily doing this with Facebook. We could do it with YouTube. But what I would recommend, especially on a fundraising event, is that you are basically then going to create a experience, which is as simple as in most of us use WordPress. We create a boundary, a border around it that has our clients' logos. And that is one way. Can run commercials for them. We could run, essentially, we're building this experience as a broadcast. And so it's a shift of thinking from a standpoint of, okay, well, we've created this from a standpoint of, okay, these traditionally have been events for the room. Well, now we're going to create a broadcast. So what does that broadcast look like? Does that broadcast look like, okay, we've got some hosts, they're introing the different acts, they're introducing, auctioneers. What does that look like? That is part of the process shift that has to happen in the next 30 days. And I would say that this is an opportunity for us to take our events to a higher level for, permanently, basically, at that point in time. So you may create an event for the audience, and you may create an event for online, but those are both congruent with each other, and you're providing that access. Again, we're all talking about the fact that we want to provide access, and so the future looks like providing the access to both audiences in that spot, which, speaking to that, we also need to be looking at this also can give us the ability to do closed captioning, other things on video that we normally haven't been traditionally doing. Yes, Scott.
I was simply going to remind and use the example, what you're describing right now, we locally, you, Courtney, and I have done for Downtown Bend for Oktoberfest. And for that event where we live stream the Wiener Dog races and just the live streaming of the actual downtown event, we windowed everything with the sponsor logos and the sponsor banners. I was trying to find a link for it right now. Mindy is reorganizing the pages, but locally, we've done exactly what you've said. And then secondarily, at the event, in this case, the outdoor festival, we also take that same stream and put it up online in this case, or I'm sorry, at the event up on the projector or the video screen. So very similar to what a lot of people are familiar with sporting events, where the windowed activity is surrounded by the sponsors, the ads, the sports scores, or whatever. Taking that image and streaming it is something that we've practiced quite a bit and is very effective. But I wanted to point out that locally, the one that you have run for us for Downtown Bend for Oktoberfest has been very successful in providing those impressions back to the sponsors of the event itself with very minimal impact and a very, very high return rate in terms of people and the participation. The Wiener Dog races in particular, we moved that to an online form in no small part to reduce the crowding of the people that wanted to see it but didn't want to brave the crowds or felt the crowds were becoming unsafe for their own personal comfort. And we've seen a great many people participate in that event, that concert, and in turn what they're seeing is that branded interface that's provided with the ads. So that's just another great example of a local event that we've done this for.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the reality is that we have that ability to do those sort of things, and we can certainly do that for sure. I know I didn't want to make this more than like an hour. We're at about 45 minutes right now. Does anybody else have any other questions? Because the reality is we are now in a different world, and we need to transition what we do to a better quality online space, and we have the technology, we have the ability to do it. We just have to look at it from a different standpoint, not from an event to the room standpoint, but an event to the world. And again, we are now opening our doors to not be so centric to Bend, but we can go to a larger audience, which in our case can also actually increase our sponsor recognition, and it can also potentially increase other dollars. Plus, we can also show ourselves as the experts and the people that know how to do it. Scott does bring up a good question about interaction. A lot of the platforms that are out there have some good interaction tools. Menti actually has some great interaction tools where you could actually stagger questions and accept those questions, which is great. Moderated. There's a lot of moderation tools out there that can help. And a part of this whole concept and in what we need to be doing is actually allowing that interaction in a better way. We have the ability to do that. And unfortunately, when we go to an event, we don't have that interaction. And now the ability to have that interaction within our online presence is amazing. We've got, I'm streaming this, those who signed up, we're obviously using Zoom, but I'm taking the Zoom stream and streaming it to Facebook, and Facebook's, has the ability to have interaction there. And if you have people in the audience or in your chat rooms seating and doing questions and encouraging people to, do those interactions, it's just great for everybody. It creates a better environment. It creates a better experience. And those people that are learning that learn differently, also, if they're more of the people that, need to have that reading and writing sort of experience, they are able to ask questions. And if you have some industry experts in your chat rooms, then all of a sudden you have those people, there's that incredible connection, which you may not have had before. Thanks, Scott. That was actually a good point there as far as the interaction goes. And I want to address one other thing that I did get another question as far as the marketing goes and advertising. We all know what our audience is, or at least we should know what our audience is. And it's going to have to be a bigger learning curve. I would encourage everybody to post some, if it is an older audience, then we're going to need to post a couple of videos, or send them through email or however channel it is that we communicate to those people, saying that, it's, hey, by the way, we're going to be doing this. This is the process. I encourage people to even send one sheets potentially to them or create on the website. Here's how you do it. And just know that the night of, or whenever it is, that's what it's going to be. Now, again, within this process, I want to also encourage people that this doesn't have to be live. This could be essentially what we refer in the broadcast world as live to tape. And so it could be a pre-canned, and then all of a sudden it goes quote unquote live, but it's really not going live. It actually has been recorded. We've edited it. We've done all of the production value, and then we're just basically allowing it to go live. And again, you can have that interaction depending on the tools you're using. You can have a lot of that also. Courtney reminded me also, for those nonprofits out there that would be doing this, like we were talking about just then, you can put a PayPal, donation button, or a lot of the other places can be donation buttons. So you really have that ability to get and drive people, directly to it and have them donate. We've seen, my own anecdotal, we did Swimming with the Stars this last October, and we streamed it, and the amount of people that we had coming to the live web stream, it was actually hosted on the Swimming with the Stars site, was tremendous. And it was, that ability to have those people was just, we captured additional amount of people, and that's, and that goes to, it's important when we're doing events, we need to capture the data also. So we got about 10 more minutes. Any other questions? Anyone? Bueller. So let me just say that everybody in this room has my contact information. A lot of people in this room also are people that know other people. But let's continue this conversation online. Let's continue this conversation. Robin does have a question. So yeah.
You guys might have already discussed this, but have you touched on charging?
Yeah,
you know where I'm coming from.
I do. That's an interesting question. So we did talk about it a little bit, but my philosophy and my feeling is there's a lot of organizations that charge for webinars. We are in a position and in a place where there's money that is being made by content. I mean, that's the reality. I mean, a lot of people probably have spent $50 on some sort of webinar over the course of, whatever it is, to learn some information. Now, I think what has happened is traditionally we're like, well, why would I, purchase that content when I can just go to the event? But the reality is we don't have those events. And so if we're charging, what then? I firmly believe that people are willing to pay for good content as long as we market it well, as long as we say, hey, this is what it is. I don't know why we wouldn't charge for that content. Webinars and that sort of thing is almost an established practice these days as far as people are paying for those. And in some spaces, there's a lot of money being trading hands that in those spaces. So my personal opinion, Robin, is that yes, I believe people will charge or will pay, but we have to make sure that we're making the pitch that this is the reason why. And I think unfortunately the internet provided a lot of free content. But again, if you're marketing this as a high-end web webinar or virtual experience, it's different than again just a standard webcam experience at that point in time. And I don't know why people would not pay for it. Does that Robin, did that answer your question?
It did. It actually did. That was actually a really good answer. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Anything else from anyone? Bueller? Okay, guys. I'm going to put this online. It'll be up on Facebook. It'll also, I probably am going to put it up on YouTube and probably LinkedIn as well. So I appreciate the conversation, all of you, and let's all, come together as a community. And I definitely appreciate all of you and what you do. So bye for now.